What's up, MegaCapitalG here? Got an awesome and excellent weather painter duel for you guys to check out. This one is definitely going to showcase some spicy tech that I never thought about towards the end of the duel that might fix some of weather painter's biggest problems. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually a really big fan of weather painters. I played a decent amount on my live stream, very similar to how much I play Luna Lights. And weather painters can be a deck that racks up a lot of advantage. It's more of a slower pace control deck. Very cool, but one of the biggest problems with the deck is it definitely lacks offense. None of the monsters except one tribute monster are like over 2,000 attack. Your Stratos has 0 attack, and Weather Painters is like one of the few decks where if your opponent has a completely empty board, Weather Painters can have like 2-3 monsters on the board and do less than 4,000 damage, and that's just kind of pathetic. Like if your opponent has an open board, you generally want to kill them. You guys know Pendulum Magicians or Spirals, like if they're in that position, you're absolutely dead. You're just going to die if you don't have any monsters on board. Weather painters aren't like that. But this guy might have actually discovered the answer to that. So I'm going to go ahead and roll this. First thing I noticed about his deck is I don't really like the sunny weathery cards. I just think that they're not that good, to be honest. But still a very cool deck as he opens with it. It's like the only card, they're like the only cards that don't really provide any instant advantage. You see that he summons it, but it doesn't really do anything. He's running against Vendreads, and I don't think we need much more setup than that. Obviously, he's playing a zombie-focused version. He goes for Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. Thought that was risky, and it was. He falls into a Solemn Strike. He is going to summon Slayer back from the graveyard, and I believe he's going to synchro again. Yeah, this guy is like Synchro City. The problem is he's going to use his what's it called, his snow weathery pattern, thunder weathery pattern. This is the one that basically turns your weathery monsters into Neospatian Grandma. This is one of the best cards. It's their best defensive card because you know, it just gets rid of links, it gets rid of synchros, it sees rather easily. His Sunny's going to come back, and now he at least has an open field. But with Weatheries, like, this is generally how your offense goes. You're usually poking your opponent for very, very small amounts of damage, like 15, 16, 17. You're not really doing a ton of damage, and a lot of times you're not really in a position to actually summon the Link monster. So she looks really good on paper, but practicality, not really, not so much. So he ends up striking the Omega, and right now he's doing okay. He sets a Thundering Roar. I don't play that card, but I mean, I guess. And then he gets another Grand Mole effect to, you know, get rid of another problem card on the field. And I'm like, all right, this guy is doing pretty good. Now, this is generally not what you want to do to beat Weathery. Like, you don't want to keep summoning a whole bunch of extra deck monsters when they have the Thunder Weathery pattern on the field, because then they're just, you know, he constantly just Grand Moles them. I'm like, how are you supposed to win? The problem is, I don't know if you guys have noticed, the Weather Painter player is he's not really making any ground here. And this can be one of the problems with the Weather Painter deck is while your opponent isn't making much ground, you're not really making much ground either. And he finally gets Snow. Snow is basically your Stratos. And the cool thing is, even when she dies, she can get this Snowy Weathering pattern. And this is a card where if you banish one of your Weather Painter monsters, you basically get to search anything in the archetype. So you need this card on the field to just constantly make advantage. Once you get there, and this card doesn't get hit with like a Ghost Ogre, you're pretty much home free. He's going to search another Snow, which is another Stratos, but you know, the downside with her is she does have 0 attack, so she's not beating over anything. Her defense is awesome, but her attack is not very high. And the Snow Weather pattern is both players' turns. So cool thing is, even though he's going to bounce the Thunder, he can just chain his Snow, he can get a search, and then when he goes to attack directly, most weather painter players will play multiple copies of Drowning Mirror Force. I play it in my deck. It's amazing. It's just like Yo Senju, man. You don't generally keep a bunch of monsters on the field during your opponent's turn, so you know the Drowning Mirror Force works exceptionally well. And this is what I mean. Let me just pause for a second. This is exactly what I mean when his opponent has no resources. He has nothing left, and with 2 monsters, he's only able to do like 1,700 damage. This is like the biggest problem with Weather Painters is the deck just can't do any damage. So you give your opponent multiple turns to like get back into a duel when other decks would have already closed out the game. You know, if you were playing True Draco, or if you were playing something that has some really solid offense, your opponent wouldn't be in the game because you would have already killed him. Now this is the interesting part. This is where things get interesting. He plays Dragonic Diagram, and he's gonna pop one in his back row, and then he gets Masterpiece, and I was like, bruh, I never thought about Masterpiece. And he's going to go ahead and he's going to tribute those spells and traps that he's racked up. And Masterpiece is not only Not only is it immune to spells and traps in this situation, but since the Weather Painter cards, for the most part, are continuous spells and traps, look how many bullets he has in the chamber. He has 3 right there that he can use. He can use Masterpiece's effect 3 times, and I honestly never thought about this. Also, there is a Weather Painter. I forget which one it is. I want to say, you know what, hold on. I'm pretty sure it's Thunder. I'm pretty sure it's this guy right here, that when one of your, it's either Thunder or a different one, when one of your Weather Painter cards goes to the graveyard, you can get 2 back. Actually, he might be a different one. He might be the one that can tribute. You can send. Okay, yeah, he's different. He sends a continuous speller trap to set a Weather Painter card. But it's one of the Weather Painters. I just forget which one it actually is. But anyways, he's going to end the duel right there. And he actually did go into the Link Monster. But you can see once he already had Masterpiece on the field, like the duel was pretty much over. And you're only gonna go into the Link Monster when duel, like the game is already over at that point. Masterpiece could have simply attacked and ended it. But just a very interesting take on Weather Painters. Like, I think I'm going to definitely test this out because I'm finding that the deck definitely lacks offense, but I never for some reason thought about playing Masterpiece in the deck, and it allows you to take all of those cards that you search, set them on the field, and immediately tribute them and get like a boss monster for the deck, because it's just, you know, we all know that Masterpiece is obviously a strong card. I don't know, maybe I might not even run Diagram, or like maybe one Diagram with like 2 Masterpiece, or one Diagram with 3 Masterpiece. That actually might make the deck brick or something like that. Anyways, if you guys are interested in the build, of course, it will be in the description. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on those notifications for daily videos.